Well, you all are certainly characters, which is good because that is going to dovetail into what it is that I want to go over. Which it's pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about characters, not the villain who is a character, nor the main character, the hero. They are characters too, but I want to talk about side characters and their roles and their types, things like that to support NaNoWriMo. Because we have a lot that we can go over. We have a lot that we can explore, and this is going to be well. So Kitty Bird, we're actually going to get into this very directly and with an example. I hope most of you are already familiar. Though we're going to touch back on the things that we talked about last week. We laid a foundation, and now let's start building upon the foundation and going back to the concepts that we had discussed. I'm the relief comic. Phew, that's the punchline. Well, I hope you're here all week, Capo. And yeah, so Capo, you also provide comedy relief, just with your sense of humor personally and the group that you're in. So you may recall, we made a villain, we made a hero, we even made the setting broadly with beans and rice. We have done a lot of things so far that has unlocked our imaginations. And now it's time to start adding the second layer onto what we've already made. If we're going to be writing a novel, telling a story, there are going to be other people in this world. Most of the time. Not every novel needs it. In this case, let's make the rest of the party, or at least the supporting cast. Though the supporting cast perhaps more on the heroic side of things. Because I do want to include the conversation and therefore the concepts in what we're building together, especially if we're talking about writing something in maybe a young adult style novel. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be. All we know is that our hero is 12, and she has some anger and self-doubt issues. And if we're going to write it from her perspective, that is it's very solid for going in a young adult style story. However, we could also write something in a direction where we have a main character that is young, though the story is more about the adults that are around her. And her role in the story is more of an innocence or a check or an understanding of the situation through the eyes of someone who doesn't understand. So I don't know if we're there yet, and by the end of tonight, I think we're going to have a clearer idea of that. But there are going to be some other characters that, whether or not this is going to be, the anime story of, we're all a bunch of young protagonists. We're the teenagers that are going to get powers and save the world. Kind of a Harry Potter style thing where we grow up with the characters. And one of the characters that I definitely want to include somewhere in the story is the concept of the mentor. And especially so with us having a younger character. Now, the mentor doesn't always have to be an older person. It could be a peer, or just maybe a kid who's a couple years older but knows more about something. But especially where we see here in the diagram of the hero's journey. And if you want to read more about this, I will post the link for you and you can go check it out yourself. But the meeting with the mentor is the last thing that happens before we cross the threshold into the outside world, into whatever the great beyond. Through a seemingly chance encounter, Arthur, or Wart as he's called, stumbles upon the cottage of Merlin. Merlin is a wizard who then goes back home with Wart and becomes his tutor. teaching him the way to become a great man through a series of magical transformations that teach him about the animal kingdom. And this is from The Sword and the Stone. Go check it out. This is a good site because it is taking you through examples step by step. What these mean, and will provide something more for you. Now, the mentor for sure. I want a mentor in the party. And is this going to be a case where the mentor lives, where the mentor dies, where the mentor... Okay, hey, Kragar, be well. Thank you for hanging out. Sorry it was a late start for you, but yeah, time differences are what they are. But thank you for being here as long as you could. I don't know what's going to happen with the mentor. We'll figure that out as we go. As you're sitting down and composing your story you want to write, you might have a firm idea, and if not, just let it ride. Let the story tell itself. Because it will be appropriate or inappropriate, given everything else to that point in the story, for the mentor to act and say the way that he or she does. And here are some examples of mentors perhaps you might have heard of these characters. Give you a chance. John Keating from the Dead Poets Society. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. Remus Lupin from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It is the quality of one's convictions that determines success, not the number of followers. Albus Dumbledore, also from Harry Potter. Differences of habit and language are nothing at all if our aims are identical and our hearts are open. These are inspirational quotes. These are words of wisdom shared by the mentor to the character to instill a moral or a value or a point which will be further explored along the story. Especially advice in crossing the threshold into what lies beyond, into the unknown, into the scary stuff. George Feeney from Boy Meets World. If you let people's perception of you dictate your behavior, you'll never grow as a person. Or Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Valandar, you like Mr. Keating's and Ramus's to be your favorites? Yes. Oh, Captain Mike. Goblin is thinking of sweaty-toothed barbarians. Can I get some barbaric yops in chat, please? Anyone? A barbaric yop? Y-A-W-P? There we go, Goblin. Goblin Town gives a barbaric yop to the sweaty-toothed madman. So for sure, we're going to have someone that is going to act as an advice dispenser, as someone who is going to prepare the main character, who is a vehicle for us in the story, to cross the threshold into the greater world. It could be a metaphor for growing up, for going through puberty, for graduating school. Like you're doing something that takes you from your current norm into a new one and a greater one, and something from which you can never change. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a new and scary thing. And these are people who've been there before and can offer a perspective. So one type of character you can include in your story, especially if you want to follow the hero's journey, is the mentor. There is a mentor in some way that is going to have an impact. Last time I did a barbaric yop, I made a friend snort half-chewed Cheetos up his nose from laughing. Now, what are some different types of characters that will appear in your works? You might recall, if you were here for the prior workshop, we especially talked about a round character, and there was another one, a flat character, which would end up being the opposite here. But there's some other considerations, and let me share this with you as well. Again, if you're following along at home, I want you to have my sources, things that I can present easily to you through this medium of Twitch with the computer and the setup that I have as well. That way you can read along. One way to classify characters is by examining how they change or don't change over the course of a story. Grouped in this way by character development, character types include the dynamic character, the round character, the static character, the stock character, and the symbolic character. ET says the loss of the Dragonborn cleric changed Lena. She is taking more responsibility and matured. So yeah, that is a crossing of the threshold for her, as she had a mentor that prepared her for this greater world, and now she's in it. Even if she feels like she's not prepared for it, it still changed her in a way that would hopefully do so. A dynamic character is one who changes over the course of the story. As such, a dynamic character makes the best protagonist. In Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, both Huck and Jim are dynamic characters. Similarly, each character in the love triangle of William Styron's Sophie's Choice, Stingo, Sophie, and Nathan, is a dynamic character. A round character. Closely related to a dynamic character, a round character is a major character who shows fluidity and the capacity for change from the moment we meet them. By contrast, some dynamic protagonists do not change until actions in the story force that change. Round characters can be noble, like Constantine Levin in Anna Karenina, or morally dubious, like Humbert in Lolita. A static character. A static character does not noticeably change over the course of a story. Sometimes known as a flat character, these characters often play tertiary roles in a narrative. Think of various parental figures in Roald Dahl's children's books. Many villains are also static. They were evil yesterday, they'll be evil today, and they'll be evil tomorrow. And you might even have a mentor character that is static. They're here, they're going to tell you the thing you need to know, and then they're either just going to be, yes, I was right the whole time throughout it, or they'll die on that hill, from what they taught the character, etc. A stock character. A stock character is an archetypical character with a fixed set of personality traits. Shakespeare's various fools are stock characters, as are some of his comic creations like Sir Andrew and Sir Toby in Twelfth Night. A symbolic... hi, Insomnia Night RPG. A symbolic character. A symbolic character represents a concept or theme larger than themselves. They may have dynamic qualities, but they also exist to subtly steer an audience's mind towards broader concepts. Most are supporting characters, but some stories have symbolic protagonists, such as Dostoevsky's The Idiot. When it comes to symbolic supporting characters, Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird is an example, representing a much larger legion of outcasts. So think about it. When you're writing, what type of a character do you want? If all your characters are round, or if all your characters are dynamic, that could lead to complex writing, and you could even lose the poignancy of whatever it is you're trying to convey. Because now you're trying to keep all those dishes spinning, everything moving at the same time. If you counter... If you counter that, Fluffy, then I will direct you. I will direct you to the Masterclass website for that. And by the way, if you all have your own ideas, you're welcome. I'm gonna provide a couple that are probably a little bit more pop culture, like I did with the Mentor. But not every character has to be dynamic or round. A static character or a flat character can, in many instances, accomplish great things. And it doesn't indicate poor writing. It doesn't indicate that the author, you, are, creatively stagnant or out of ideas. They exist there for a reason, especially as a villain. Evil yesterday, evil today, evil tomorrow, and yet the villain is a compelling force, if not actually the compelling force, of why it is that we get entertainment from our entertainment. Also, Defenders of Kobold, thank you for coming in. Let me give a shout out to Defenders of Kobold. And what were you playing tonight? I would say that symbolic characters would be like the children other than Charlie and Charlie. Yeah, where they were, they each demonstrated a particular, a particular moral or character flaw. You know, oh, this is what a bad kid does. And it's a particular type of bad, right? Illustrating one of the sins, etc. Sour Vixen. Oh, Alien RPG. Excellent. Thank you for the shout out, Daly, and welcome to you, Daly. Good to see you here. Pilgrim's Progress and Gulliver's Travels. Look at it if you want to go back as well. The characters in The Wizard of Oz. Electronic says, I'm having trouble executing a roleplay for Lena. Context due to the events in Daggerford. How they lost a duke by fiend beings. Thus, Lena is not favorable to fiends, but a tiefling would be questionable. Delve into it and explore it. And if you need to as a player, ask for context, Electronic. Because if you're not sure how to come to a decision on something as the player, ask for more information to consider through the lens of Lena. It almost sounds like a magic item, the lens of Lena. Bristle, depending if it's contextual, you can. Because this isn't a political channel. Obviously, that sort of stuff comes up in the conversation of writing, of exploring ideas for roleplay. You know, and it's a part of our lives, but it's not something I want to make sure that we feature, or like this isn't a channel to vent about it or to cheer about it, because obviously current events, you know, a lot of, you know, good, bad, or indifferent for a whole swath of people. Oh, Twillis! Okay, so Bristle Bandit. Yeah. Oh, I heard about that. I did hear about that. So, and you know what? I will say this. So formerly, I'm saying this because I'm going to repeat it to make sure I get it right, that it stays in my brain. So Twillis, formerly Twillis, now Bristle Bandit. You can use events like this that happen in real life as interesting adventure hooks to write a story or to make a character. So, no, I get it. That's all you're saying about it. And at the same time, what kind of a story could be built around that? You know? In fact, Mark Twain had a quote about truth is stranger than fiction, because fiction is beholden to the possible, or, you know, to possibility, and truth is not. So. And the concept of character archetypes has been brought up too, and I'll get to the more pop culture examples as well. Characters in a work of fiction can usually be grouped into archetypes, or archetypes if you prefer. These archetypes have been categorized by Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, the American literary theorist Joseph Campbell, and generations of authors, screenwriters, and storytellers. Here are the 12 commonly discussed character archetypes. The lover, the romantic lead who's guided by the heart. Their strengths include humanism, passion, and conviction. Their weaknesses include naivete and irrationality. Some famous lovers are Romeo, Juliet, and Scarlett O'Hara. The hero, the protagonist who rises to meet the challenge and saves the day. Their strengths are courage, perseverance, and honor. Their weaknesses include overconfidence and hubris. Some famous heroes are Achilles, Luke Skywalker, and Wonder Woman. The Magician, a powerful figure who has harnessed the ways of the universe to achieve their goals. Their strengths may include omniscience, omnipotence, and discipline, while their weaknesses center on corruptibility and arrogance. Prospero, Gandalf, Morpheus, and Dumbledore are famous magician characters. These would also be good mentor characters in the hero's journey. The Outlaw, the rebel who won't abide by society's demands. The Outlaw can be a bad guy, but not always. The Outlaw's strengths include independent thinking and skepticism. Their weaknesses may include self-involvement and criminality. Among the famous outlaws are Han Solo, Dean Moriarty, and Humbert Humbert. The Explorer. I'm sorry, if you want the T to be silent, Humbert. The Explorer, a character naturally driven to push boundaries and find what's next. Their strengths: they are curious, driven, and motivated by self-improvement. They are weak in that they are restless, unreliable, and never satisfied. Famous explorers include Odysseus, Sal Paradise, and Huckleberry Finn. The Sage, a wise figure with knowledge for those who inquire. Strengths of the Sage include wisdom, experience, and insight. In terms of weakness, the Sage may be overly cautious and hesitant to actually join the action. A few famous sages: Athena, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Hannibal Lecter, who in this case is an evil sage. The Innocent, a morally pure character, often a child, whose only intentions are good. Their strengths range from morality to kindness to sincerity. Their weaknesses start with being vulnerable, naive, and minimally skilled. Famous innocents are Tiny Tim, Lenny Small, and, oh geez, if that was Italian, that would be Chow Chow San. So Cypher, so I'm sorry, I cannot properly pronounce this off the cuff. So chat, if you want to push your glasses up and go, actually, Cio-Cio-san, all right. Thank you, Valandar. The Creator, a motivated visionary who creates art or structures during the narrative. Their strengths include creativity, willpower, and conviction. Their weaknesses include self-involvement, single-mindedness, and lack of practical skills. Famous creators include Zeus, Dr. Emmett Brown, and Dr. Moreau. The Ruler, a character with legal or emotional power over others. The Ruler's strengths include omnipotence, status, and resources. Their weaknesses include aloofness, being disliked by others, and always seeming out of touch. Famous rulers include Creon, King Lear, and Huck Finn's Aunt Sally, or Aunt Sally, if you prefer. The Caregiver, a character who continually supports others and makes sacrifices on their behalf. Among their strengths, caregivers are honorable, selfless, and loyal. Among their weaknesses, they lack personal ambition or leadership. Sometimes they even lack self-worth. Famous caregivers include Dolly Oblonsky, Kalparina, and Samuel Tarley. The Everyman. Many main characters are the Everyman. The relatable character who feels recognizable from daily life. When it comes to strengths, they are grounded, salt of the earth, and relatable. In terms of weaknesses, they typically lack special powers and are often unprepared for what's to come. Famous everymen: Bilbo Baggins, Leopold Bloom, and Leslie Knope. And the Jester, an intentionally funny character who provides comic relief, so we're talking like comic relief, Capodrazi, and others, but may also speak important truths. Strengths include the ability to be funny, disarming, and insightful. Weaknesses include the capacity to be obnoxious and superficial. Famous jesters range from Sir John Falstaff to King Lear's fool to George's parents in Seinfeld. Dandelion or Dandelion in Witcher. So Norlai would, maybe Caregiver, or the Innocent, Fluffy. Now, here's this. Would Bright be the Jester? For as much as maybe we want to say that Bright was the sage of our story in our campaign, Oh, caregiver? Okay, I'm sorry. I fell behind in chat, so when you were replying to what I was reading, I missed it in my brain. You think she's the magician? For as tricksy as she is? I don't know. Would a divination wizard be a very good magician? I don't know. Omniscience and omnipotence and discipline? I don't know, Fluffy. We might not have been playing the same game. I think his name translates to Buttercup, but Dandelion was more masculine. Yeah, I'm sure there were some things that were switched up in translation. Oh, all right. So Fluffy will concede she's a magician that has appreciable elements of the jester and the sage. So we're going main class magician, subclass jester then? Okay, so I'll accept magician, subclass jester. So as you can see, there are different types of characters, and it's absolutely okay to write to these kinds of characters. Because hopefully from at least a couple of the names that were dropped, you can find some commonality and go, oh, you know what? I have seen this type of character presented 5 different times, but they were still their characters, right? How about this? Oh, Mad Mardigan from Willow? Ah, very good, Zump. Also, Zump, howdy if I didn't say hi to you. So here we go. Meat and sarcasm, that's all I got. It's pretty much my whole identity. I would like to think he played a little bit bigger role. But think about this. In a world where people can wield awesome elemental magic, what character was Sokka in the story? How could you describe him? Comic relief? There we go, Valandar. Right, the relatable one. I can't bend earth and metal and water and blood and swamps. And he felt just as lost in the magical world that was being explored as, you know, as I would be. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Valandar. You can bend metal if it's thin enough. That's true. Sometimes you got to move that staple, and so you flip it over and use your fingernail, and you're like, yeah, oh, raw power, you know. Bender bends metal. There you go. That's true. So think of this character. Now, if you're not familiar, this is a character from Avatar: The Last Airbender. The cartoon, the one that exists and is considered real. That's all I got to say about that. and so think about what type of a character is this? And he wasn't even the main character of the show, right? It was Aang. And yet this is the character with whom we could identify with the world. He was our eyes and ears and our opinion of living in a world of people who have power and can take over nations and do awesome and destructive things. And he's the meat and sarcasm guy. He provided comic relief. He was also our relief, because we don't have a world like this. It's hard for us to put context to the decisions that the people around us are talking about. He's had to grow up in this world. He's had to experience these things. Oh, so elements of the lover to an extent, Valandar. Hi, Yulwin. It's good to see you. Yulwin is an artist in the community, everyone, who makes some really impressive pieces. You have seen 2 pieces from Yulwin that I've commissioned for New Year's in our Gallery of Heroes. And actually, speaking of a community in Southeast Asia, if I'm recalling correctly, Yulwin. Hey, Keys, welcome. It's good to see you over here. Thank you for finding us over here from Derek's channel. Yeah, ET, if you go to our Gallery of Heroes, let's take a look at the seasonal art. Let me show off real quick. This piece, which were the sub-mascots, and then before that was the first New Year's piece, right here with the main mascots. And so Yulwin is the one who drew these. Now, there's a couple other fun character considerations that you can have. Now, these could be main party members. These could even be elements of the henchman for the villain, or just a passing NPC. Who is Cabbage Guy from Airbender? Probably just a jester. I mean, you might be able to argue maybe some everyman, but I don't think we get... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can experience what real life is like in a world full of bending from the perspective of the Cabbage Guy. But there's some other concepts. Have you had a story? Have you had a story with a red herring in it? A red herring is a term for someone who's not the villain, but ends up being implicated as the villain. As someone who is a baffle to the progress of the investigation, the mystery, the story. Or if you've had someone who, even within the party of good guys... Valixion, hey, it's good to see you. Poor side character, the party always ended up hurting on accident. Yeah, says Keys. Think of, in fact, Cypher. Fluffy Sheep brought up Cypher from the Chroma Company campaign. There's another character in a story. Maybe is not a traditional red herring, but is certainly a rival or a foil, and that would be Cypher from the first Matrix movie. You have someone from within the good guys, or the party, or the group of adventurers, who actually goes on to side with the villain, or a villain, really. Who is who tries to stymie the progress of the party. Now, are we going to have a red herring style character? Also, hi, Afro Rob. Howdy to you. Maybe. That could create some interesting drama. If we're going for a young adult style, this could be, I don't know, normal, whatever, average. Maybe many of you've seen, whatever, anime, high school, whatever. Although, for some reason, in anime high school adventures, there's never teachers around. There's no teachers or parents. But let's say that, like, within the context of a school, this would be someone who goes to tell an authority that the main characters are acting out of line. A red herring in, what, Harry Potter could probably be Draco Malfoy. A foil? Maybe not the villain, because there is still an innocence to Draco, but someone that you definitely want to impugn, put a lot of guilt or frustration at baffling the progress of the party of heroes. Easy red herring, normal NPC that looks like somebody at a crime scene, while the actual villain is a doppelganger or changeling. The best red herring is red herring. You mean from the Scooby? Oh, Snape. Snape. There you go, Yellowin. Snape is a very good red herring. Yeah, keeps you guessing. You mean red herring from the Scooby-Doo, whatever, with young Scrappy-Doo? Oh, no, it was the Young Scooby-Doo Adventures. It was the kid actually named Red Herring. It was the red-headed kid. Yeah, a pup named Scooby-Doo? Yeah, there we go. I think there was one episode where he actually was guilty, where he was the villain. But in every other episode, he ended up just being a red herring. So this is another character type that we might want to discover, is someone inside the group who even could be the jester. That could just be something on the surface. Could be an agent of the villain, or just a rival in some way that is along for the ride until a time of betrayal. And where this can cross over with the concept, because we're using Dungeons and Dragons as a baseline, as a common understanding point. Everything that I described here, the different character types and subtypes, as I was talking with Fluffy Sheep. Oh yeah, Bright could totally be a magician as her class, and her subclass is a jester. Well, there are character roles in a story. If all the characters are the same, the story might not be as compelling. And the world won't be as rich, because we do a lot of direct and indirect storytelling through the perceptions of the characters. If we know that someone is a big old sourpuss and just a grumpy butt and all these other words, but and is a static character, will never not be grumpy, we understand ways that we can take the things that character says, sees, does, smells, senses, etc. Because it's a reference point, and it still builds the world for us. If every character was the same in personality and in everything, even if it's like, well, the character difference is the main character uses a sword and the brute uses an axe, but they both are meat and sarcasm guys. I mean, okay. Maybe in your friend group, you are the meat and sarcasm guy, and there's another meat and sarcasm guy in your group of friends or family members. There's still other notable differences that will set you apart. Even identical twins are not identical people. They're characters. And we look at the mechanical breakdown of a D&D party. You know, the generic, the party of 4, you have the healer, the tank, you have a DPR, a damage dealer, and then you have, in 4th edition, it was called a controller. Leaders were these characters. Leaders, I think both clerics and fighters were that. Controllers, and, my 4th edition, knowledge is fading, apparently. And I played 4th edition all the way through from beginning to end, and I ran several campaigns in that in the rule context. Yeah. No problem. Oh, Randall from Recess, says Afro Rub. Alright, Goblin Town, thank you for hanging out as long as you could. You and other goblins are always welcome here. Let me give you a peace out here with a peace goblin. There you go. Looks like she's hiding in she's hiding behind a fig leaf. She's very modest. So there can be some crossover with the mechanical role a character has. Now, I will be the first to tell you, you can have a party of all bards, and you can still be a functional party and have a lot of fun. Or you can have 4 monks and just play TMNT or whatever. You can do that. Many people opt to have, you know, a breadth of various skills, ways to fulfill party mechanics, and this can accent the character of who they are here. You have the blaster, the controller. Oh, that's right. It was the controller, the defender, the leader. Leader in 4th edition were healers. Controllers, defenders were paladins and fighters and such. And then strikers were rogues and I think monks and stuff like that. So you can cross-reference this with, all right, so what kind of a party are we going to build in this sense? And just know that the face of your party could be a barbarian. The healer of your party could be your rogue. Think about how nimble a rogue is on the battlefield. Can avoid taking damage and also get to people quickly. And with their, you know, with their bonus actions to use items, a rogue can make an awesome battlefield healer, administering potions and bandages and anti-poisons and everything because of how swift and nimble they are and how action efficient they are in helping people. Now, is that necessarily magic? No. But it's still potions and poultices and other magic, you know, advanced healing. So don't always think that a defender has to be the fighter or the paladin. Your monk might be kitted out to be the controller about movement on the battlefield because they just go around and they have a build to stun a bunch of people and just prevent movement altogether. So think about this. Think about the party composition. Let me put the link for this if you want to read more in depth about what I'm referencing here. And there is some, you know, general advice. You know, druids can make good blasters, controllers, healers. If you want to look at things in this regard as well. So, you know, go look at it, cross-reference it with character. I'm not worried at this point in time of our story about, oh, we're totally going to give the main character these abilities and these spells and these feats. We'll get to it, in a sense. But I want to know more about where's the main character in this regard. Is she going to be more of a defender? And that almost matches up with her brooding personality. Because actually our main character is probably more, in this iteration, more of... Probably the ruler, in so much as a 12-year-old can be a ruler. She has a lot of knowledge. She's been through a lot in her life. She lost 2 of her fingers. She comes from a family of smiths. And now she's going to a bard school to try and learn and to just be a more wise person. So there is some wisdom. There might be some resources, but the aloofness, being disliked by others, always seeming out of touch. Our 12-year-old main character, who's neutral evil by mechanical alignment, might have more of this ruler archetype to her. But anyway, cross-reference that. So if she's a ruler, is she a ruler librarian? Is she a ruler supporter? Is she a ruler blaster? Don't worry about this. Worry about the concept. About the broad concept of the things you want her to do and how she says it through her personality. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about a character that is interestingly regarded as a hero and a villain alike. However, there are going to be spoilers for the Walking Dead video game from Telltale Games. Not extremely specific ones, but I'm going to be talking about a character who is featured in The Walking Dead. And if you want to play that game, I guess take a break for a little bit, maybe for the next 10-ish minutes, perhaps. But yes, spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about the Walking Dead video game. It's been out for a while, so, I mean, take that as you will. You probably know this stuff, especially if you've played through it. But this is primarily going to be talking about Walking Dead Season 1 and 2 from the Telltale video games. So, here we go. I'm going to switch over in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's talk about a very interesting character build named Kenny. And let me give you... Well, all right. At least the link part in the chat. Up here it shows up. You can follow along here if you want. Kenny is the tritagonist in Telltale's The Walking Dead franchise. He appeared in Season 1 as the tritagonist, in Season 2 as the deuteragonist, and a determinately flashback character in Season 3. Kenny was a more rational, calmer man in the first half of Season 1, known for taking action and being a true friend to Lee, but after the death of his wife Katja and his son Duck, he became increasingly unstable and depressed. When he returns in Season 2, he has become even more unstable, volatile, and reckless, indirectly causing several characters' deaths, but one remaining light is Kenny's friendship with Clementine and his care for Alvin Jr. His actions in the story had led him to be viewed as both a hero and a villain by many of the characters within the game and some fans. By the way, Clementine is an excellent example of how we can have a child main character in a story about adults. The Walking Dead is way more about the adults of the world and the world in which the adults have, are acting in which Clementine, a child character, will inherit. And so maybe aspects of Clementine could be instilled in our main character. Though I don't know, I think our main character might be not quite as innocent or as sociable as Clementine. Now, personal recommendation. I highly recommend playing through The Walking Dead Season 1. The others, 2 is pretty solid. 3 and 4, mixed. Everyone's going to have a different experience, and if you've played a Telltale game, you probably know what you're getting into with moral decisions and some squeamish scenes. Some topics that you go, ugh. But anyway. Kenny definitely changed throughout the course of Season 1. He just wanted to be he wanted things to be normal. He still had his wife and kid, and, he was just trying to still live in a normal life in a world that no longer would or could be normal. And he, he had to change, and he was forced to change with the times and through the loss of his wife and son. And his personality is such that he always wanted to try and protect others, and to be a leader, and to try and still feel like there's some sense in a world that doesn't make sense anymore. I mean, you can read the details here. I'm not going to go into the minutia of everything. He tried, and in many times he failed. And I'll tell you, the cast, especially in Season 1, I love the characters in Season 1 of Walking Dead, the video game. I thought that they were very well written, and I really enjoyed them. Now, you might go like, oh, that scene was hackneyed. Well, yeah, of course, it's a zombie movie, so things are going to happen or whatever. But this also presents a way to watch a person just slide and to become unhinged over time, but still keep up that, no, I got this. No, my son wasn't bitten. No, we're gonna make it through this, even though there's no getting through things. And an interesting, and probably even more than the details of the character, we're going to step away. We are going to step away from the details of the story, and we're going to look at Kenny as a character from the writer's perspective. This was something, and this was an interesting bit that I had picked up from, I think it might have been a developer interview, something along those lines. At least in the first season, Kenny was always correct. Now, there are moral situations and other things, but if you were to take a practical approach through the story, if you were to take and sometimes maybe a non-emotional approach through the story, the writer of that scenario confessed that Kenny was always right. He always had the situation. Now, maybe not with the specifics. And as a writer, for you, it can be very interesting to have a character that, whether people like the opinion or not, you have a little secret that you don't make it obvious. It's not until they get to the very end of the story that then, through all the choices going all the way back here, you can now look and go, you know what? I didn't like Kenny for a couple different reasons. But I also can't deny that Kenny was correct when it came to, like, the big things. And if you can give that level of perspective due to a character trait, you might have written a very compelling character that people will remember and fall in love with, even if they're not a main character. Kenny was never a main character. He was solid in 1 and 2. He wasn't the hero for sure. And I very much agree with, he's actually a villainous hero. But if you can have a character like that, or you have a character that has a hidden I'm the writer and I know that everything that this character is going to say is going to be technically correct, but the way it comes out might sound aloof, might make him sound, I don't know, cruel, or even overly caring and dramatic, so that the point is actually missed because it's so fluffed up. There was a character like this in my Chroma Company campaign that I ran that had this spirit of Kenny. So, let me go off of, okay. Spoilers over! Hi everyone, we're back! I'm not talking about the Walking Dead video game by Telltale Games anymore. Welcome back. I made a point and I gave some things to think about character development and what can make a compelling character with someone from that video game. But welcome back to the main conversation. And I hope that I hope that understanding the types of characters that are out there are going to be you have so many different options, and please don't feel like, oh well, this one type of character has been written before. You know what? You're gonna have your character and you're gonna write your character your own way. And I will urge you, always go to who the character is. This sort of stuff is a part of the character, yes. And you might have awesome scenes in your mind where you say, oh yeah, my character, shining full plate, and click clack, and you have the onomatopoeia, you have every adjective at your full command, and you're like, oh yeah, this is so, this is so BA, and you describe how the sword comes down and cleaves through the... Why is this camera, by the way, not... the sword comes down, cleaves clear through the enemy, and all this other stuff. Okay, I mean, that's a moment of tension. That's a moment of something, but that in itself doesn't make a character, because there's a lot of characters that can cleave through enemies and wear shining armor. You lose your character if your character is just a full plate sword swinger. I will urge you, please always remember, in role playing and especially in storytelling, where you can very much control what happens. You control every story beat, every descriptor, every word uttered by every character. It's the DM's dream. Sorry, fellow DMs out there. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. Being a novel writer is the DM's dream, but also as a DM, you can never use your game as a novel, because far too much other things happen. So make sure that you're not forcing people into a novel. I hope I'm not too hypocritical with me urging people out there to do that. But the spirit is there, even if the flesh has failed that task. These are things around character, a dynamic character, especially the explorer. This tells you who your character is, and the explorer is going to swing a blade differently than the outlaw. The magician will swing a blade differently than even the sage, even though there might be some concept, some overlap on a Venn diagram. And so remember who swings the blade, who kicks in the door, who cries on the shoulder of a friend in the face of loss, who grins widely at a simple sunrise. I mean, a creator can still smile at a sunset. It's a brand new day. An innocent can smile at a sunset or a sunrise for the same or completely different reasons. You are describing the world through these points of view. And so always consider these characters. Even if you know, that mechanically I have an assassin rogue who splashes wizard, divination wizard, or whatever. And, I'm going to do all this cool stuff mechanically. You can do cool mechanical stuff, but if you're going to write about your character in a story and you're going to develop the people, don't forget who the people are. Because a ruler can wear chainmail just like a caregiver can wear chainmail. And so the chainmail itself is not necessarily as important as who that character is. And this is also why I want many of you to please don't fall into the trap. Please don't fall into the trap of having things like magic items become your character in your story, in your webcomic, in whatever, in your role-playing game. Because then your character is nothing more than a mannequin wearing magic stuff. And the story is about the cool sword that bursts in the flame, and the sword that sings, and the sword that gleams, and the armor that's never pierced. There's a lot of us, and I've been guilty of this as well, where we're so caught up with the cool stuff, the flashy stuff. We want the amazing powers. I want to describe the magic spells and the magic items. You can, but there's a point where the items become the character. And when that happens, a lot of interest can be lost in your character and therefore the story. The bikini that is gilded and always shiny, says Yulwin. Hey, someone's got to light the way. So when you take the trench coat off, oh, it gleams. Talk about flashing people, right? You know, that I've seen too much of it where people are like, yes, my character wields Bloodlust, the serrated sword. It's a sword that comes from a long line of vampires, a family, 2,000 years old, and it has a blood ruby encrusted in its cold iron. And like, I'm learning way more about a magic item than I am about the character. In which case, just play the magic item, I guess. Because what development is there to the character? If everything the character says and does revolves around the sword is the character and not the wielder. The wielder is an accessory to the sword. The wielder is an attuned magic item that the sword uses, I guess, in a sense. And so just be careful about these external things. Don't fall in that, because because my character wields this, like, that's the important thing. Or that the character has red hair. Oh, all the redheads are gonna love me because I made a redheaded character. And this is for the gingers out there, everyone. Maybe to a degree. But is having the adjective, the descriptor of being redheaded itself... I mean, even look at Sonya the Red. Sonya the Red is a redhead. So you want to talk about bikini armor too. But Sonya is not just a redhead. There's a lot more to Sonya than having red hair. And so be careful as well when expressing your character that it's who that character is. The decisions they make, the words that they use, and especially the faults that they find along the way. Because the everyman is going to have a fault that needs to be resolved, through which we can identify with that character much more than magic armor or red hair or likes horses or lives in the countryside or whatever, right? Those are parts that help compose the character, but not necessarily who that person is in the story. That'd be funny, says Keys. I remember the one magical weapon I made called the New York Shank. It was a dagger that when swung or thrown yells, "Hey, I'm walking here," in a Boston accent. I gave it to the rogue. So hopefully this review was helpful. We were able to give you some ideas about the characters you want to feature in your stories, whether it's a novel or you're planning a module or some other writing to present at your tabletop through whatever. You want to run through Wrath and Glory, you want to run through D&D, Morkborg, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Paranoia, All Flesh Must Be Eaten, Kobold Ate My Baby, Pathfinder, Starfinder, the My Little Pony RPG. These are still universal thematic concepts for characters that are going to carry through setting, through rules. You know, a barbarian in My Little Pony might be mechanically different from a barbarian in Morkborg, or a concept of it. But you still are piloting a character that has thoughts and feelings, observations, and through which we are experiencing the world and the events that play out, and give us an understanding of the world through the lens of that character.